Welcome, adventurers. What's going on, guys? My name is Cody. This is Taking 20, a channel about all things role-playing games. And today we're back with Call for Aid, as we're taking a question from Tess, who wants to know how to play a character that might be coming up a bit short on the intelligence meter. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started. Alright guys, so before we jump in and get started, I want to say thank you to all of the patrons for making this video possible. And if you have a question you want to submit to Call for Aid, you can do that in the Taking 20 community. You can just go down to the description, click the Join Taking 20 community, and ask your question. So, pretty easy. Alright, so today's question comes from Tess. Hey Cody, I hope I find you well. I am well, Tess. Thanks for asking. I ran into a bit of an issue a while back concerning a friend who was putting together a zombie apocalypse campaign. I thought it might be fun to play as one of the shambling undead who has allied itself with the party. I honestly fully expected to be shot down, but rather than telling me that it wouldn't fit the campaign, they told me that unintelligent creatures make for shitty characters. I've always thought that flaws and challenges make more compelling personalities, so that statement goes against everything I understand about character development. Worse yet, as the conversation went on, it actually started to become a personal attack against my own difficulties with Asperger's, leaving me at a loss as to what to say. I'm curious now if you have any thoughts about how to make a psychologically damaged character interesting or how best to incorporate them into your campaigns. It's not so much a question about zombies in particular, but about any character that might come up short when measuring up to conventional human standards of intelligence. Best of wishes for you today, Tess. All right, Tess, so there are a few things I want to touch on here, and the first of which is, I just want to say I'm not going to talk a lot about your Asperger's condition or how you are handling that socially within your group. Instead, I'm going to leave that up to the comment section below. Maybe if one of you guys watching this video right now has any experience with that might be able to help Tess out in maybe how to handle that a little bit better with their party, please, I invite you to leave them a comment below. I almost said her. I don't want to assume I don't want to assume it's a her, but if you guys have any experience with that, I'm going to leave that up to the community here to maybe touch on that for you. But the first thing that I do want to touch on is unintelligent undead as a player class. This is something that I would probably lean towards at my table not allowing. And it's not so much that I wouldn't allow somebody to play an undead character. In fact, I think that might make for a pretty interesting character. And that right now, just talking about it, I've got a whole bunch of ideas to pop in my head about maybe running an undead campaign, which sounds like a lot of fun. But instead, I want to say that unintelligent undead probably don't make for great characters because they are, if you're looking at something that's like a zombie, that is literally just a force, that is just there, it doesn't have any ability to contribute. I think that maybe if you wanted to play something like a lich, cool. If you want to play something that is an unintelligent undead, yeah, maybe you want to look for something else. Keep in mind that you're not the only one at the table, and you don't want to take too much away from everybody else from trying to play something so unique and trying to really be out there with your character choice. That's just my personal thoughts as a dungeon master and as a game master. But what I do want to talk about is playing unintelligent characters, because this is really, really interesting to me, and honestly is one of the reasons why I chose this question to do for this particular episode of Call for Aid, because I think it's something that I personally struggle with, right? Playing an unintelligent character, to me, for some reason, always seems like a challenge. I feel like I don't know the right balance of, should I push forward? Should I pull back? Should I lead the group? Should I, as a player, help solve the puzzle? Because I love that stuff. That's a lot of fun for me. Or should my character kind of humble and bumble along a little bit more than the way I portray it? It's actually something that I think is pretty difficult. And I think that a lot of players probably assume the same thing, that it is really hard and tough sometimes to try to portray an interesting character that isn't an over cliche, that isn't something that has been done to death, that also is a little dumb. Maybe isn't the brightest person in the party. So what I've done is I've come up with a list of things, and I've actually done a little bit of research on traits for people of lower intelligence, and I even looked at some traits that intelligent people do to maybe get a better grasp on this. And this is something that I do a lot of times when I'm coming up with a character. There's a lot of utilities out there for traits and characteristics for writers. And a lot of times I find that it's easy to grab 2 or 3 things from those lists and try to blend them in to make your character. So somebody who is dumb and somebody who is unintelligent as an adventurer, I kind of get the feeling of a jock here, right? It's somebody who is capable of dealing out a ton of damage and defending themselves and being a mighty warrior on the battlefield, but they're not terribly smart. And what do not terribly smart people, is a nice way to put it, how do they act? What do they do? One common trait that they have is that they're short-tempered. Now, I know that this might seem like something in the charisma or maybe even wisdom by picking fights that they don't really want to be involved in, but this is something that people of lower intelligence seem to have in common quite often, is that they are short-tempered. They also typically have an inability to learn from their mistakes. Again, this is something that you might originally construe with being wise. Does a wise man learn from his mistakes or not? But this could also be relayed in the form of having a low intelligence or having a low intelligence, charisma, and wisdom. Maybe your character is really inept in all of those areas. So maybe you have your character charge into battle, even if you've done it before and it didn't turn out great for the party, or maybe you burned through more resources than you would have liked. Maybe that's something that they continue to do. As they continue to charge into battle, they continue to be short-tempered and short-sighted. Something else lower intelligent people seem to share in common is that they live beyond their means. So perhaps your character, and this could be something that's really fun to roleplay whenever you get to town, maybe they just go wild, they just go nuts and they spend all the money. Maybe they come across a merchant in town with a beautiful sword that they just had to have, and they spent all of the party's money on that. Something else that people of lower intelligence share in common is that oftentimes they're shallow. And this is something that you can portray beyond just something that is sexual at your table, especially if it's inappropriate for your particular group. You can have your person be shallow about how they appear in town, what their appearance looks like, what the appearance of their horse looks like, and have that really matter to them, because people of lower intelligence can oftentimes really focus on the stuff that may not matter in the big picture. So that's something to consider. And another trait that I came up with that I really thought fit well to a character that lacks intelligence is that maybe they're a daydreamer. Maybe they dream and have delusions of grandeur. Maybe that's all they talk about is when they get to the town, how much they're going to spend and what they're going to do. And they're going to have the biggest castle and they're going to put the biggest moat around. And they go on and completely exaggerate about all the things that they're going to have, that their moat around their castle is going to be the grandest in the land. It's going to be filled with crocodiles and all kinds of horrible creatures that will eat up anybody that they deem too ugly or too stupid. Which is another trait that people of lower intelligence share, is that they often think that they are the smartest person in the room. They're actually not smart enough to realize how dumb they are. And they can be know-it-alls that don't take advice, even if it's good advice, because they're stubborn and kind of hard-headed. Another trait that I thought was really interesting, but one that I would advise you talk to your group beforehand. Seriously, talk to your group beforehand if you're going to do this. And that is blaming others when things go wrong. So this could be a tremendously fun trait to play for your character of lower intelligence, as long as everybody understands that you are in character. Trying to blame others when things go wrong and people aren't sure where the line is between you and your character may not be great for a healthy group environment. So as long as you let people know, hey guys, I'm thinking about portraying my character like this. I might blame you a whole bunch when things don't go our way. I'd give them a heads up. That's just my personal advice. And finally, the last trait that I have is that, of course, you are not good at planning. So maybe your character is overwhelmed, or maybe your character thinks that things are just going to work out, or maybe your character is a naysayer but doesn't contribute to the party. Maybe they just shoot everything down. Again, this is another trait that if you decide to go with, I would probably give my group a heads up if you're going to do this. Now, you also mentioned playing a damaged character. Now, I think this is not quite as straightforward, and my advice here is to really come up with a solid background as to what happened to your character to make them damaged. Because playing a damaged character could have a lot of different meanings. Were they set on fire as a child and they can't handle being around fire, like the Hound from Game of Thrones? Were they abused physically or verbally and they can't handle beratement, or they can't handle being looked down upon? Or were they damaged on the battlefield after seeing all kinds of horrible travesties that snaps them back to those memories whenever things get a little rough? So come up with a great background and think about what that specific event would do to playing a damaged character, and also consider having your character be a dynamic character that slowly over the campaign begins to overcome those things, those issues that are holding them back. Okay, so now it's time to pass this off to you guys in the Taking 20 community. What do you guys think makes for a good unintelligent character? What makes a good damaged character, and how to portray that, and what kinds of things can we be bringing to the table with role play to help reiterate those things and bring them and push them into the light for our characters? I'd love to hear what you guys think. And as a second reminder to you guys, because I know that you guys skip forward on me sometimes, okay? I know that. Don't pretend like I don't know that. If you want to submit your own question to Call for Aid, you can do that by joining the Taking 20 community and just leaving me that question over there, and I'll sort through those, and maybe your question will get picked for the next episode. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week, I'll be putting out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time. I'm curious now if you have any thoughts about how to make psychological... I can't believe I messed that up. Psychological. They wrote psychological. Psychological. Let's go with that. I'm curious now if you have any thoughts about how to make a psychological character.